Good morning, everyone. This is High Point Mayor Pro Tem Michael Holmes calling to order the July 17th session of our Tech Committee, Transparency, Engagement, and Communication Committee. With me in chambers today are all members of the committee, council members Moore, Harmon, and Cook. We have one item on our agenda today, item 2024-297. It is our disparity study and MWBE program update, and we have Bobby Fitzjohn, Financial Services Director, presenting.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the committee. We will have a much more qualified person speak to you about the MWBE program as well as the disparity study. But I do want to introduce her. We, in recent years, council and management have directed staff to evaluate our MWBE program. Council recently awarded a disparity study contract that is currently underway. So there's been recent investment in this effort. The outreach program has been long-standing. However, there have not been resources necessarily in place to carry that out in past years. We've since added additional resources for that. One of those resources is our MWBE coordinator, and I'll invite her up to give a quick presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone, to our council members that are present, and to the others that are present here. I see our city manager and our communications manager here. Our purchasing manager is here as well, and as Bobby, our finance director, has already mentioned, that you all have invested in the community and to the business community more specifically. I am going to be presenting just an overview of what has happened in the past 14 months since I have been here. A lot of that effort has been with our disparity study. It will not include utilization for this particular report because we are just closing out the fiscal year. So in the next report in the months to come, we will be presenting to you where we are and where we stand with regards to our minority business utilization. But we will give you an update and an overview. As Bobby mentioned, you all had invested in the community and invested in our MWBE businesses with resources. You've given direction one with funding the position that I now stand in as the MWBE coordinator. You also made a huge investment in the community with the funding of the disparity study, which is currently in progress. After I present to you an overview of those two items, those main items, I also want to share with you some of the things that I have been doing over the last 14 months as it relates to our MWBE program updates, our community outreach and engagement, as well as our building and rebuilding of community partnerships with other sister agency entities, our community trade organizations, as well as with our business owners as well this morning. Again, the disparity study that has been funded and contracted, I wanted to give you sort of an overview if you were not able to participate in some of the activities that have already transpired. Excuse me, is a little bit about what a disparity study is. One, it is a tool and a mechanism that many government agency entities engage in doing in order to analyze our utilization and our spend for a period of time. And typically that's a 5 to 7 year snapshot of what your business expenditures were for those fiscal years. We, in the study, it analyzes both race and gender utilization, and then it starts to dig into whether or not there are barriers that prevent minority and women-owned businesses from being able to be successful in, one, winning contracts, and then maintaining and performing on those contracts. And so those are some of the things that are brought out in the analysis that a disparity study does. It also will evaluate whether or not there are biases that either exist in the agency entities' practices and protocol and their procedures. It takes a look at both the general statutes and regulatory requirements that are surrounding each agency entity, and then it looks at the individual nuances that are specific to that agency and under the jurisdiction. And then once they analyze those parameters, then they will provide a recommendation for how to move forward. One, with remedies to alleviate any of those barriers and changes to that should take place in order to improve or enhance your program. Or if you don't have a program, then it gives you recommendations of how to start and implement those changes. Now, for the city of High Point, our disparity study, I've given you here that you see sort of a snapshot of where are the major building blocks of a disparity study. And it builds from the bottom up. We have already begun the process or completed the process of the legal analysis where we looked at the legal case studies of how the disparity studies came to be, what was the impetus and the catalyst that started the need for having to analyze our data. We've also had several interviews with our departments for looking at our policies and procedures. We've completed that part of the review process, and we just received the draft chapter of the overview of those findings and those interviews. We have collected tons and tons of data that we have provided to the consultant. They are in the process of doing the final clean up of that data. We got an overview 2 weeks ago with regards to the initial findings of what we had given to them, and then we're in the process of doing the next phase of that. They are also in the process of collecting anecdotal data, and you'll see that in a later part of the slide. So several of these activities are concurrent activities. The relevant market analysis, they're going to be beginning that part in the next couple of weeks. The utilization threshold analysis, they are also going to be doing that. The analysis of the availability, that will be starting in the next couple of weeks as well. We are also collecting data from the business and the community sector, as well as trade organizations that are engaged in advocacy for minority businesses as well. There's a lot that will be coming out of this. It not only looks at the governmental agency side of it or public sector work, but it also looks at private sector. And so they will interview some of the businesses in the private sector and analyze the utilization there as well. And then they'll provide us with a recommendation. So the staff here with the City of High Point, I must say that this is my fourth disparity study of working with state agency entities, and I must say that working here with the City of High Point team, that this is the best team of stakeholders and steering committee individuals that I have ever worked with. Everybody's working together in synergy, even with the departments. So I think we're going to have a very good tool for us to make improvements and enhancements to what we already have within the city's MWBE program. The staff in our steering committee, it encompasses people and individuals from our leadership team, from purchasing, of course, myself, the MWBE, from our DEI office, our communications office, our public, our marketing team as well, our transit department, information technology, and then we have some representation from the department liaisons that we are utilizing them to assist us with collecting the data and providing valuable feedback. The other part of that is also with the community engagement. We are reaching out to the MWBE business owners. Over the last several weeks, I've been engaged in several community outreach events, and so I've been able to engage directly with the business owners and to also encourage them to participate in the disparity study so that we receive that feedback directly from them and express upon them the value and the importance of the disparity study and how those results are utilized and incorporated as we move forward and continue to make this, as we say, that the creativity here in High Point, it changes the world. And so we're looking for our business owners to provide the feedback that will ultimately not only change the world here in High Point, but it permeates even beyond our geographical borders. And then we're also engaged with our trade organizations. On the right there, you can see that these are the efforts that are being utilized in order to collect this anecdotal data. We have already had the informational meetings earlier this spring, and then we are, as I said, we're right in the middle of doing the anecdotal interviews. The business survey of the business owners is currently underway right now. I encourage you, even as our council members, that if you are connected with the people that are in your regions and your wards and your jurisdiction, to encourage them to participate. We have been sending out the email blast that goes out every week as a reminder to encourage them to participate and to provide feedback. The survey takes about 10 or 15 minutes for them to complete. So we encourage you to help us continue to push the notifications out there, encourage them to do so. The business survey will be in rotation until August the 2nd. And then once we close that, then the consultants will start to analyze that information. We do have 2 public meetings that are coming up next week on the 23rd and on the 25th, and then we'll talk about that a little bit more. It's being published and advertised on our social media platforms. We have the weekly email blast that goes out. It encompasses about 12,000 or so business owners and business entities as we are pushing that narrative out there so that we can get feedback. Typically, you're going to get maybe 10 to 15% response. And so there's a lot of effort that goes into that. And then we'll also begin to do some personal phone calls as well for our local businesses and
Cynthia,
business owners.
currently, the email, you have to either subscribe or opt in to the email to be on the email list. You have to sign up to be on the email list. Or how would one get access to the dissemination of the survey? Like, I know you're saying you're sending it out on social media, but if someone is not subscribing to the social media or they're not on the email list, how would they get it? Would it just have to be us sharing it or across networks, or is there a physical place where someone could?
There is. They can go to our webpage, and on our webpage, there is a link for the disparity study, and the information is right there. They'll see the icon for both the business survey as well as the icon for the public meetings for next week, and then they can just sign up. It's a virtual public meeting, and so there's the one on the 23rd is in the evening from 6 until 7:30. And then the one on the 25th is during the lunchtime hours. So we tried to make sure to be flexible so that we give the greatest availability so that if they can do it either after their normal business hours or they can do it during their lunch hour.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was maybe like a QR code or somewhere, something that we could place in local businesses or disseminate out to local businesses that they could scan there so that people could to get access if they're not catching it online.
I don't think that we have the QR code where we have placed it in establishments, but I will make a note of that and pass that back on to our marketing team to do that. Thank you. Okay. Then the other thing is that we're doing is also, we had focus groups of about 20 or so businesses, so they're in the process now of the random selection of those groups, and there are two different focus groups that we're going to target the participation of at least 40 businesses on the focus group section. So that's also in progress right now as well. And then again, we're engaging with our trade organizations and our civic organizations as well to also assist with getting the word out and to make sure to disseminate that information to their membership and to the community. Okay. Where we were with the study, the preliminary phase, as I said, we've already completed. These are the tasks that we've already completed. Again, first, I want to thank you all for commissioning and allocating the funds for this to be done, as well as allocating funds to support the MWBE program. It's a vital I think a vital thread in the tapestry of the community and the growth and the health of the community, as well as the economic impact. We're working with Griffin & Strong Interest to perform that study, and we did the kickoff meeting that started and launched all of I would say the bulk of the activity in February. We did get them under contract in the fall, in November, and during that time period, there was some other background activity that had to take place that we were able to do as we were ramping up to get ready for the data collection piece and engaging with the steering committee. We've already launched the web page for our disparity study, and as I said, there's a link on the city's web page as well that links you directly to the disparity study web page as well. The legal analysis has already been completed. The preliminary draft has already been reviewed by the steering committee and our attorney as well, and feedback and comments have already gone back to the consultant. The policy and procedures interviews were completed, and as I stated, we just received on a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, the draft so that we can start to review the draft of the policy chapter based on what they received from interviewing the various departments that have procurement activity that they do. The data collection started in January and concluded in June for and I say the major statistical information with regards to our spend for the 5-year period. What's still in progress, as I said, we are preparing for the 2 public meetings, which is an opportunity for the business owners to be able to provide feedback about their experience with doing business with the city of High Point or not doing business with the city of High Point. We would want to know that information as well so that we can better shape our strategic initiatives in order to be able to engage them even further into trying to do business with the city and to be successful at that. Again, these are the dates for the 2 public meetings, the July the 23rd at 6 p.m. and then Thursday the 25th at 12 noon. And this is the actual flyer that is being pushed and promoted to the business owners, as well as the one that's on the link to our webpage as well.
Will those meetings be held here?
They're virtual, so
They're
once they
virtual.
register, they'll receive a link to the Zoom. What we found from prior to COVID, we normally would have had those meetings in person, but what we found was we got greater participation by doing the virtual platform than we did with the in-person. Okay, and this is just showing you what the disparity study webpage looks like when you click on the link and that they can go to. Okay. Shifting a little bit, the MWBE program, as I said, I've been here now 14 months, and there's been a lot of the activity has been on internal assessment of our existing program and the disparity study. I think I was here maybe a week before we actually put the solicitation package together. So I came in, and that was the first thing I was asked to assist, to help, to move the needle forward with regards to the MWBE program and going ahead and executing the initiative for the disparity study. And we were able to do that. And in addition to that, we had a number of solicitations that we did during the time for the end of May through the end of the fiscal year when I came in 2023, and then up through this current fiscal year. So I spent some time with the purchasing department or the purchasing staff and team to understand what the existing solicitation documents look like. We did make some minor modifications to that with the understanding of knowing that there are going to probably be some major shifts and changes that will be recommended as part of the disparity study, but I did see some things that we needed to make some immediate adjustments with, and we worked together as a team to do that and to update some of our solicitation documents. For that time period, we performed more than, or I performed more than 100 document reviews of solicitations and for solicitations events. And what I do during that, with those documents, is I review them, one, to understand what the scope of work is, and then to be able to identify MWBE firms that could do that particular work, and then try to match them up and to notify them of these opportunities of solicitation so that they can begin to engage and participate on them. And so in reviewing those, I'm looking for not only the opportunities, but then making sure that the documents are in compliance with what the general statutes state that we are to do, and then also participating in all of those solicitations and those pre-bid meetings, pre-proposal meetings, so that I can talk about the MWBE goals for the city, talk about the program and how they can be successful, and then offer my assistance in helping them to be able to identify minority businesses or women-owned businesses that can fulfill that particular service based on the scope. As I said, from the May 8th to the June 30th time period that finished out the fiscal year, there were 17 solicitations that I participated in. And then for this current fiscal year, there were 72 that were done, or 74 that were done from July 1 through June 30th. There were 10 that were solicitation drafts that I was involved with and engaged in. This also includes some solicitations where we have an evaluation committee, and so as the MWBE coordinator, I participate in all of those evaluation solicitation and that process, and be able to provide feedback to the departments as well as to the purchasing team to identify the MWBE goals and share that with those particular vendors that are looking to be awarded those contracts. Also working with departments, I've had several departments that have contacted me directly that may have opportunities that don't come to purchasing. So I have had several departments that have reached out to our office to be able to request assistance in identifying potential MWBEs for those opportunities that they're going to do a direct purchase order to, or even those that they may purchase something on the P card. And so that's another service that I provide internally to our departments. And then we're currently in the process of developing a new MWBE training module. Right now, currently, I assist and work with our purchasing team when they do the training, the monthly training for the P card. Then I also participate in that training and go over the MWBE component for that. And so we're working on a new training module that will be available for all of our internal staff to understand the program, what the program is, what it isn't, and who's responsible for doing what pieces of that, and to engage in a partnership for the program to be successful. For community outreach, I've participated in 12 community events over the last 14 months. 3 of those were business expos that I represented the city of High Point as an exhibitor, and had an opportunity to network with and engage with the business owners with regards to opportunities with the city, and then also to find out who they are, also being able to recruit new businesses to register with the city of High Point, and then to begin to go after bidding opportunities. Two events were me participating as a panelist on a panel discussion. 2 that I was actually a presenter to present either an overview of the program or to present specific content. One that was a roundtable discussion participant as well, and then 4 other events as the advocate participating and representing the city on those events. And you can see from the images some of those events and activities that were included in that inventory. For our community partnerships and our strategic partnerships, I firmly believe that the greatest asset to the community, and as well as to the state and to the nation, is when advocates can come together, collaborate, and do partnership, share our resources, share our knowledge, and then also I firmly believe in also reaching back and to train and to help and give guidance to those that are coming behind us, as many of my peers and advocates that mentored me have now retired. And as we continue to move the needle forward, we are strongest when we are together and unified. And so these are a number of the partners that I maintained, and some new ones that I was able to develop since I've been here. So you see not only it's Guilford County, the school system, the colleges and universities, our chambers, both here in High Point and in Greensboro, throughout the state of North Carolina, and the North Carolina Coordinators Network, which represents about 120 or so advocates all across the state of North Carolina that are either working with the state agencies, and then we also have corporate partners who also have supplier diversity managers within their system. And so we are constantly collaborating with one another so that we can help to build a stronger diversity program. Last year, I think many of you may be aware that High Point, the city of High Point last year was the first year that our local Piedmont Triad Med Week, which is for our minority business community, that we were the host city and hosting agency for that. We've participated in that for several years now. This is the 10th year of the Piedmont Triad Med Week celebration, and during last year's time period, we were able to bring in all of those partners working together. When I came here last year, part of my role was also, in addition to getting the disparity study up and running, was also to work as a chair of one of the subcommittees to help with leading and organizing our Med Week activities. Since the City of High Point, we actually were primary in the business development component of that. And so the images that you see there are from that two-day event that we had and that we hosted, and we were able to work together and have an impact on the community as well. With that, I will take any questions that anyone has. And again, I thank you for your support and for your funding for the program. That's the most important.
Thank you, and I appreciate you getting me looking so engaged in that last picture there. I was really engaged there. Does anyone have any questions for Cynthia? Thank you for your presentation and the depth of your presentation.
I have a couple quick questions. I guess one is the disparity study. When do you expect that to be wrapped up and to present the report to City Council? Is there an estimate?
It will be the spring of 25, next
Okay,
year,
so
in the
still a minute
spring.
away.
I'm sorry?
So still a few minutes away then.
Oh, yes, it's still a little bit away, because once they complete the rest of collecting the anecdotal information, as I said, they still have to do the private sector analysis, and then they will really start to, do what they call a regression analysis, and then they'll do sort of an impact as well, and then start to develop those recommendations. So once they do that, they will present a draft to us, and then they'll do a presentation on all of their findings, their recommendations, and then also suggestions of how we implement that.
All right, thank you. So for other disparity studies, how long, I guess, cities get this report, and so how long does it take for them to go to make some changes in how they do business based on your experience? I mean, is it like a year-long process to go, we need to change these procedures and evaluate the impact of those changes and that sort of thing? If we get, the council gets it next June or whatever, when can we expect some different ways of doing things within the city? I mean, is that within the next year? I mean, are these things more complicated to implement?
Sometimes they're a little bit more complicated than that, and it also depends on what they recommend, and it depends on the depth of your resources. Because having, the one that was done for the state of North Carolina with all of the state agencies and the universities, that one, it took over 2 years to do the study. And they are still in the process of implementing some of the recommendations that were done with that one. The one for Guilford County, which was the last one that I just completed before coming here, they are in the process of implementing some of those recommendations. And as I said, it depends on the nature of your existing program, the complexity of what it takes logistically to actually implement and execute the recommendations. The other disparity study that I participated on, it took them probably 4, maybe 5 years to actually implement all of the recommendations, because there was a lot that had to be done. Typically, if the recommendation is additional staffing and resources of that nature, it's going to depend on your budget, fiscal year budget each year. You may be able to add, a person here and there and do that in stages, and even develop your policy and your actual operational procedures manual such that you implement one piece here, and then it may have to be planned and projected out for the next fiscal years, and it may be 3 fiscal years
Okay.
to do that. But
All right,
it
thank
just depends.
It's very helpful.
Rick, do you have a question?
Yeah, I got a couple. You mentioned 12,000, I believe, is in your blast that goes out earlier in your presentation. How do you know who those 12,000 are, and what geographic area are we talking about?
They're pretty much in the state of North Carolina. The way that the study is done, and when we start to do part of that analysis to analyze what is called our statistical market area, it is where you spend the bulk of your money, but not necessarily the actual dollar value, but it is based on those counties that are contiguously touching one another. So say, for instance, the way that the presentation that was given to us 2 weeks ago, we're right here in the middle, and the way that our spend is, and typically is where 80 to 85% of your money is being spent. Our market goes either all the way down to Charlotte, or it goes all the way down to Raleigh. And we are definitely in the middle. But what we did was we took all of the vendors that were in our current database of vendors that we've done business with. We also utilized the vendors that are in the North Carolina State Hub Office database and state purchasing. They also utilized information from the Department of Labor and the Census Bureau as well, and they identify the businesses that are here, even though we do a lot of business with out-of-state and even businesses that are outside of the country. Those are excluded from the analysis. And so we know that we have about 8,000, a little more than 8,000 vendors that are in our database as far as vendors that we've done business with. So we have those, and then there is some overlap between what's on the State Hub Office and what comes from the Department of Labor. But we have the business information with their contact information, knowing not just who the businesses are, but they've been able to also identify what is the diversity category that they fall in there. And this includes both minority MWBEs and women-owned businesses and non-minority businesses as well, because we need the feedback of all in order to get the true picture of what's happening in our community. Okay.
You mentioned in your time here that you have, you reviewed our documents and that some modifications have been made. So what was your assessment of the documents we had in place? And can you give an example of a type of minor modification you might have made?
Okay, the documents that we currently have, they are based on the same documents that I helped to develop with the university system that were adopted by the state of North Carolina. So the primary foundation of our MWBE plan, the outreach plan, is based on that. So it does follow the general statutes. Some of the modifications were things that are specific to the city of High Point in the way that we do some of the procurements. One is, obviously, the biggest change was that I participate in all of the solicitations so that I can make sure from a standpoint of being compliance. My role is dual in the sense of not only just being an internal advocate for the city to the community, but also to represent the community back to the agency, the governmental entity as well, so that I'm also looking after the best interests of our businesses that we're serving. My background is also in facilities management and design and construction. And so I'm also looking at the documents to make sure they're in the best interest of the businesses that are bidding, whether they're minority or not. Some of the major things that we have seen, one was there were some, I'll say some practices that were outdated because of legislative changes. So we did make those changes, and we changed a little bit of the language. Just last year, they added another category to the MWBE list of classifications of those that we count. So we added that to our bid documents as well.
And who was that? And what category?
There's a category now that is for the ownership is based on employee stock options, but it is based on a business that the majority of the ownership of stock owners are a minority group, and it can be a combination of the minority categories, but the 51% ownership of that business entity is minority group. So that one was added to the law, and so we've also incorporated that. The other items that we did was because typically in the past, we did not have any representation on those selection committees for MWBE representation, and so that was the other thing, that I participate in all of those. The other is that as I was beginning to look at and analyze the fact that we have not been actively tracking our subcontractor utilization the way that it should be done. So we're making strides to make those adjustments. The other piece is that our current financial tracking system, there is no mechanism in that structure to be able to track those dollars. And so it's having to be done as a separate spreadsheet, and it has to be done manually. The other is the fact that we have every department, even though they come through purchasing, there is a significant decentralization of policies and processes. Everybody's doing something different. Everybody's doing some of their own things. And so those are some of the things that I saw that we have to be able to address. In order for me to be able to wrap my arms around the MWBE component, there has to be some standardization of how you're reaching out, and even with maintaining that information. For me to be able to report our utilization to the state hub office, those projects that are not coming directly through purchasing with a posted solicitation, we also have to track that. Anything that's $30,000 and up has to be reported to the state. But there's no documentation that is on record and on file that I can access as to what level of contact was done to utilize those businesses, and if there was any effort that was being done. And so those are some of the main things that I did see that we have to be able to get us in alignment so that we're in total compliance to be able to report it. And then the other thing that we changed was to make sure that we were allowing and allotting enough time for contractors to even meet the requirements. To solicitations, when they get posted and they go out, there were some instances that I found that we were not providing them with that minimum 10-day window for them to do the notification. And so my recommendation was that we expand and extend that bid solicitation period, because as we put out a solicitation, the contractors have to meet the general statutes or the notification. Well, we were not providing them with enough time to meet the requirement.
So are you saying you changed that 10 days? You expanded that 10 days?
For the solicitation, I did, because what happens is the contractors, when they're participating on a solicitation for a bid, and they come to a pre-bid, once they understand what the scope of work is, they have to then reach out to the minority business community, and the 10-day clock is on then, right there. So we have to back up our time beyond that. So
You
we
expanded it to what?
We typically are doing about 21 days, and depending on the scope of work, the ones that are more complex, we give a full month on those solicitations, so that they do have enough time to notify them, the MWBEs have enough time to be able to look at the solicitation, and then to actually provide them with bids so that they can do that and meet that statutory requirement.
So, since you said earlier that tracking subcontractor spend, we haven't done a very good job of that in the past. in terms of our overall percentage of the MWBE spend, not tracking that subcontractor procurement, is that an effect or a negative to our overall percentage? Would that be calculated as a negative towards our overall percentage?
Well, what it,
Not captured at all.
what it does is that percentages that you have received in the past have not included some utilization.
Yeah.
As we were doing the disparity study, there were several contracts where you did have participation, but it was not captured in what I could see
So we
from
could have
the.
been better than we.
Yes, you could have.
Okay.
The other piece of that is part of my discussion and recommendation is also that we do the design services. There is a requirement for getting MWBE utilization on the design services. And so you do have some now, and I think that's more because those particular designers have done so many projects for other agencies and entities that it's required that they are already doing it as part of their embracing of the spirit of the program statewide. But for what we're requiring the designers to do, utilizing the practice that we have right now is this blanket annual service contract for everything. We do not open that opportunity where there is additional utilization that can be done, because they already have the contract. They just go ahead and proceed forward, as opposed to being able to open that. It doesn't mean that you have to do away with that process, but we have to build in the next solicitation that goes out to make sure that we are incorporating guidelines for those designers to be able to do that. The other is not providing the documentation of the change in utilization when there are change orders. As I have reviewed some of the pay apps and trying to track what that utilization is, I'm seeing the amount paid to a contractor exceeds what they said is the committed, and I know that that's not the case, and so I'm having to then try to track down where and when did the change order take place, because it changes your MWBE participation, whether it goes up or down. Anytime the dollar value, the overall contract changes. And that's the other thing that I did see that is a change that we must do, is that the way that the reporting has been done, it only provides you with the utilization for the construction contractors, their PO or their contract. And the way that the reporting to the state is the overall expenditure for the entire project, including the designer and all ancillary costs. So if you've got moving costs or the cost to relocate telecommunications, all that stuff has to be reported to the state. And so there's always going to be a difference in the utilization numbers that get reported based on the audience of who's receiving the data and the information.
Thank you. Any other questions for
I just
Cynthia?
had one question. This is Councilwoman Cook. So sometimes when you're part of a minority group, it's easy and clear to understand what some of the invisible barriers are to people participating in these processes. And when you're part of the majority group, it may be less clear what is preventing people from participating. So I'm wondering if you have a story of someone who maybe couldn't see this before, and then after seeing the report and, seeing some of the data and hearing some of the anecdotes, that their mind might have been more open to what was actually going on, that it's not just they weren't trying hard enough or, something like that.
Yes, I can provide you, I'll give you an example, a scenario rather, is many times, you hear about MWBEs not being able to be successful, or they'll try and they'll try and they'll try in providing bids and are not successful, or they come in second or third, but they're a distant second and a distant third. One of the major factors for, especially for contractors, is the supply chain market. And, you know, when they provide bids to the prime contractor, if they are a sub or trades, they don't get the same price points that majority contractors do. So they have a disadvantage from the get-go, is that typically, you know, the contractor, they can do this 10 to 15% markup, depending on whether it's just the prime or if it's the trade. If it's a trade, the MWBE, when they go to a supplier, and I'll use, when I was working at UNCG, one of the things that I did to solve a problem was that we had a minority contractor. He was a prime contractor that he won his first project with the university. It was almost a $300,000 project. But when he went to the supplier to order the carpet for that project, they would not give him a line of credit because because of the dollar amount, they did not think that he had the credit worthiness for that. So what we did when he brought that issue back to us at the university, what we did was we pulled the carpet out of his contract, and the university, I bought the carpet, because we do millions of dollars worth of carpet installations on the campus. So we bought the carpet, and then it eliminated him having to go through all of these hoops trying to approve and provide them with credit worthiness so that he could order carpet for this particular project. And we ordered the carpet and then had it delivered to the location of where the project was being done, so that then he could do the install, and then we paid him for the labor cost for installing it. And so many times when contractors are bidding, what they end up having to do is sometimes they lose their shirt, or they are at a severe disadvantage for being able to be profitable, because what they end up having to do to be competitive, because they're already getting their supplier material cost is already at 2 or 3% more than what the majority firms or non-minority firms receive a price point for, even with bulk purchase. So in order for him to be competitive, then he has to take that difference out of his overhead and profit. And sometimes they may not be able to absorb all of that. And so they may win a contract, or if they can't, then they, instead of doing a 10% markup, they may do a 5 or 6% markup so that they can get the low bid. And now they're at a disadvantage because they've had to give up what would have been their profit margin in order to win the job. And so that's one of the things that you don't necessarily see, but that's a barrier to them being able to be successful. Doesn't mean that they won't win the job, but in order to be viable in the community, and so that they can reinvest what they've been awarded into either themselves or into another project, or even into just being able to take care of their family and their employees, that's a huge barrier and disadvantage. So the anecdotal information that you get out of the disparity study, you'll find those kinds of stories. I know that more so because I've been on all sides of the table of the industry. So I've worked as a designer. I've actually worked as a contractor. And then I've seen what it takes to do that, to do the estimates, and working with the design team, and then also managing those projects, and now advocating for both sides to do that.
Thank you. That's great insight. Any other questions for Cynthia? Thank you for this very in-depth discussion. There's a lot of work ahead of us on this in terms of equity, but I think we're moving in a great direction. We can see that, and I'm looking forward to the reports that come out from the disparity study coming up in the next few months. So there's nothing else. Folks, we are probably about an hour or so out from the State of the City. So if you are planning to attend or watch, please do. And if there's nothing else to come before the Tech Committee, we are adjourned.